15 is all yours. I like you to take up from here.
Thank you, Kushi. Am I audible?
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you.
All the dignitaries on the dais, please could you join us in the audience?
So, can I start now, Kushi?
Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am. Please.
Thank you so much. Namaste and a very good evening to all of you. I first of all would like to thank COEP for inviting me. Particularly, I would like to thank the management, the deans, as well as the senior faculties who are present here, either online or offline. I would like to thank the student volunteers of Mitra for being who they are, and I would especially like to thank Kshipra for taking all this wonderful initiative along with her team members. And I also like to thank the students here who have joined in. I don't know how many of all of us are there, but how many we are. We are friends, and some very interesting points on which I would like to share my thoughts. And then, because this is online as well, if you have questions, please put it on the chat box or share it with Shipra, and I'll be super happy to answer them to the best of my capacity. So, the first thing that I wanted to talk about was the two ways to look at Indian mental health. First way is that in a social sense. And we find that, in that context, this work that Mitra and COEP is doing is really very nice, very important and very significant. It is a fact that in the current context, as many have said, the disruption has placed an immense amount of burden on all of us. We have had to learn, adapt from in class to online and from online to hybrid now. And we have had to go through several disruptions. And I remember that during my classes last year, I always used to ask my students online who were in different parts of the country by then about how they are feeling. So there were moments, as Professor Ahuja has said, there were moments when each one of us must have felt anxious. But as a teacher, I felt that it was important that we, of all the things that are happening, we select the ones that we are able to feel good and happy about. Similar to the idea that Shipra pointed out, which you worked in Mitra, that taking one day at a time. In that one day, taking few important, good, meaningful moments at a time. And so that was something that as a teacher I tried to do in the last 1 year. So if we look at the broader social context, apart from COVID-19, as a country we struggle in terms of formal acknowledgement of mental health as well as a response. In that light as well, the work that COEP is doing, the management is supporting, is extremely important. There are very few places where you see so much of fellowship, so much of mutual respect and affection, and so much of informality. And it is this that is important in the whole idea of Mitra. So we do have serious resource crunch if we look at it in a social context. And there are issues of people feeling hesitant to come out and talk about their difficulties. And some of the instances that Professor Ahuja mentioned point out to this fact as well, that we feel hesitant to share about our inner difficulties, and we feel comfortable to share with a mitra. So which brings to the second point, in of understanding what is Indian. And that's why I thank Shipra to talk so that she called me from an Indian perspective. So in the Indian perspective, there are two words which we need to understand when we say Mitra. First is Sakha. And Sakha comes from two words. Sa means shared and Kha means space. Come. So Sakha is a person who shares your mental space. So we feel comfortable to share with someone who shares that space with us. All the cool dudes and chilled out people, the young people these days use that, give me some space. But who is there in that space with you? The person who is sharing that space with you is your friend. That is the definition of Sakha. Similarly, the definition in the word Mitra, the word Tra means suffering. And also protection from suffering. So when Professor Ahuja said that, the two things that he said so wonderfully, one is that you never say goodbye, and the other is that you are never without friends, in the first instance. Or indeed, life is meaningless if there is no one to share space with. And so we have friends or people who we care for and who care for us and who show us that care in that shared space. Now, as young people, we feel we share spaces in terms of casual friendships and general friendships and Facebook friendships and Snapchat friendships and a whole lot of other hangout friends and so on and so forth. But truly, a friend, if we go by the definition of Sakha, is a person who shares that space with us, that internal space with us, which in fact Shipra as well as Professor Nandini, as well as Professor Ahuja mentioned, is that when you share the space, you listen to each other. You listen to each other, isn't it? So you can listen to each other about wonderful things. It's easy sometimes to listen to each other when we have wonderful things to share. Most times it is difficult to share when you have difficult things to share. And that is the true essence of Mitra. That someone who we feel comfortable to share even the most difficult things without censoring, without photoshopping it. Without photoshopping something, can we share who we are with this person and can we be available to other people? While other people feel comfortable to share even without photoshopping themselves. So I think that effort that we are all doing is something wonderful from an Indian psychology perspective as well. In the Indian psychology, emotions, they are defined in terms of bhava and rasa. In these words, bhava or bhavana, rasa, are used in almost all Indic languages, including in Marathi, Gujarati, and Hindi, and a variety of languages, a lot of languages in the Indian context, Kannada, Tamil. So bhava or bhavana, it keeps changing. Finally, to come to these two principles in our internal space. The first is the changing self that we have. So for example, our age, we become old and we are young and so on and so forth. Then, our social spaces, some of us are cool and popular and some of us are not so popular. Some of us are tall and some of us feel a little embarrassed about that we are not tall enough and so on. So there is an aspect of our inner space that keeps changing and that keeps changing. Now, it is important to note that our friends, the Sakha and the Mitra, share that changing self with us, and there they are able to comfort us when this changing self starts disturbing. Now, Professor Ahuja mentioned that there must be some stability. So, it is indeed Indian psychology and spirituality says that in each one of us, there is something which is stable, which we don't sometimes are not able to touch, which we are sometimes not able to access, right? So there is a changing self, right? And there is a stable self that we can find shelter in. So in that light, self itself is the first mitra, the first friend. We ourselves are our first friend. But which self? The self that never changes, is always stable, is always precious. Always precious. So when you say this, every breath and every life, that is that stable self that will never give up on us. Right? So sometimes people say young people cannot understand so many things, their attention spans are so low. I think that's nonsense. All of us navigate the changing self, but are always centered in that unchanging self. All of us. Even young children, even college students, young adults, middle-aged adults, and older adults. We would all seek to be centered or, find shelter in that self that doesn't change. And that is in all of us. Without using any unnecessary, complicated philosophy, this is the essence of the whole idea of mitra. Mitra is that stable presence, whether of yourself or the other who mirrors that, who never changes, never leaves us, ever. Right? Friends never say goodbye. That was wonderfully said. And if we make ourselves that presence in somebody's life, we are that mitra and sakha to that other person. So, this is the bhavana that we have. And this bhavana brings that rasa, that joy of living. All of us would like to live a happy life, which is perfectly legit, right? All of us would like to have a life which is centered. And another word that is used in Indian psychology for psychologists, and all of us would like to have that presence that is stable and enduring in our inner space and in the space of others whom we care for, is the word Shanta. Shanta, very famous. India is very famous because of that. Right? Om Shanti Shanti Shanti, right? Lots of movie songs are made about it. True, it is good for all young people to know. But Shanta is that stable emotion, beyond positive and negative emotion, beyond anxiety and depression, which we will face, all of us. But this Shanta will allow us to navigate out of that. And when friends listen, they are Shanta. They mirror that peace and quiet, and they mirror that patience, for that allows them to listen. So, Shanta is one of the foundational rasas, and that brings that ability to become accessible and available. A very nice thing that Professor Ahuja said that friends never say goodbye. So how do you know that? So when you call your friends and you say, do you have time? Your friends say, yeah, I'm very free. I have nothing else to do. I want to listen to you. What do you have to say? Can you tell me what you have to say? I have nothing more to do. And this shared space, in inner self as well as in shared among those whom we care and who care for us, is not always done, in a counseling session. It is done while having a cup of tea, while sharing about some books that we read. It is also shared while we discuss some issues at night, while during dinner with our parents or with our siblings. Sometimes we pick up a phone call and listen or tell about something, and somebody listens with peace, with shanta. So this availability, to be able to give that availability to others, is also part of our inner self, because it never gives up on itself. In the Buddhist thinking, this is called as Swayam Samvedana. Swayam Prakasha and Swayam Samvedana. So Samvedana is shared emotion. In fact, shared difficult emotion. Samvedana. Some people have said Samvedana is the true Indian word in Indian languages for empathy. Samvedana. So Buddhism calls that it as Swayam Samvedana, which means you listen to yourself and you open that availability of listening to others. And I think that is something that COEP has done. So even if you're engineers, doesn't matter. Because whether we are engineers or psychologists or professors or students, that is part of being self. At the essential core, we are that unchanging, quiet, never giving up, and always listening to others self. So I think I'm going to stop at this, and I would really like to extend my, what would I say, great friendship and affection, because that's the only way we care for all of you here. And I would especially like to thank the management for continuing to support. It is such an important thing. Because of my work, I end up traveling to different contexts, and I don't find many, and I'm honestly saying that, I don't find many institutions with this kind of management support. Very, very important. Uh, there was one institution which started this kind of work about 10 years back, which was Kalakshetra in Chennai. But very few institutions do this work systematically and with that support that is required. So I really congratulate you, and I look forward to your support. Because young people go through changing life events, and that focuses more on the changing self. Whereas retired people don't have so many life-changing events, at least in terms of work. So then they say, okay, now we are going to focus on the unchanging self. Actually, both always exist. One becomes foregrounded and other goes in background. So it appears that young people, because they have to navigate so many changing events in their life, their changing self becomes foregrounded. So first, thanks to the management, honestly. I really appreciate this friendship and fellowship for all of us. And I appreciate Professor Iyer and Dr. Shipra Mokhe for taking the charge for this, So, really nice. Dr. Shipra, I really appreciate the work that you're doing. In fact, I appreciate that you wrote 2 papers, and you should be writing more, really, because this is something, these are few things that happen. They need to be highlighted and made visible. I thank all the Mitra volunteers, including the ones who, made it visible and put it on the social media. We think that we are doing this, and this is the final point about Indian philosophy and psychology. Because that inner presence is the unchanging inner presence. We think we are doing it for others, but in the final event, we are doing this for ourselves. We are doing it all for ourselves. Our changing self learns skills, but our unchanging self confirms itself. So our changing self, which is our personality and so on and so forth, develops, learns skills. Acha hai, it looks on your CV, good, do it. But our unchanging self, by sharing that inner presence, confirms itself, validates itself, and therefore you take the best of the both worlds. Right? So I absolutely thank the Mitras. You are developing your skills, you are developing your social skills, but more than that, you are accessing that stable self in you. And that is a wonderful, wonderful practice. And finally, I would invite all the young students who are available here, who are on Zoom. These words, availability and accessibility, I learned in the last 1.5 years. So I invite all of you to not only, visit Mitra when you need help, but also come forward and become Mitras, because that way you will also get a win-win. You will learn skills and you will access that stable, enduring self and inner presence. So thank you very much. Thank you once again.
Thank you, ma'am, for sharing these words of wisdom with us. It was so important for us to realize that the stable self is within us, and all that we have to do is sometimes tap on it, find it, and that is so important. Something that I really loved about your talk was that you brought in how we should draw inspiration from our own culture. Like when we say Om Shanti, we have been doing this for ages, but today understanding the meaning of what exactly the word Shanta means, I think it was really an enlightenment kind of moment. And I think we all should really look forward to find our unchanging, quiet and ever-growing self. So thank you for that, ma'am. Now we'd like to open the session for a Q&A. So we like to take questions from the audience, anyone with questions. But please frame your questions, because I'm going to take up the first question, ma'am. So yeah. That's the privilege of standing here. Ma'am, so my question is, like, when we talked about finding our stable self, like our stable self is always within us. But what do you think would be, like as a student, I'm a 21-year-old college student, could you share any quick tips when, let's say, if I'm having some kind of anxiety attack, or I'm just panicking about something, so what would be your quick tips so that I can just calm down, at least for the moment?
Excellent, thank you, Khushi. So we have that stable sense of self within us, and we also have that stable sense of self when we share it with others, right? Now, if we are feeling a sense of panic, or if at that moment of awareness, there are two interesting things that I can share. The moment we realize that we are feeling that panic, one tends to slow down, right? So that the moment you realize that you are panicking, there is a kind of, if you look at it in psychology, modern psychology, it's called self-feedback or self-awareness. It's also called self-awareness. So the moment you realize that there is a panic that is occurring and it is something that is disturbing me, for that split second there is a slowing down of the process. Okay, so that's one. Now, if it is an automatic kind of a thought process, sometimes anxiety or panic comes automatically in us. We are not able to find that moment to stop it, right? So, in order to address that, when we study brain functions, for example, we find that there are two pathways that go into the brain. The automatic pathway is faster than the deliberate thinking pathway. So, if you are feeling panic, then what you have to do is to just sit down quietly and allow that one self-feedback mechanism to kick in, and second, breathe deeply. Why am I saying breathe deeply? It's not a placebo. When we breathe in and breathe out deeply, oxygenation to the brain improves. And when oxygenation to the brain improves, more energy is available to the brain to process things and break from that automatic loop, anxiety loop or panic loop. You know how we will say, oh my god, this is happening, oh my god, now what do I do, oh my god. So there is no space between the thoughts. So when you breathe in and out deeply, simply for 5 minutes or 2 minutes, that's quite a lot, you will find that additional energy, oxygen will go to the brain, and that's the mechanism that is proven now, and you will be able to bring that space between the two automatic thoughts. In fact, if you go to meet a friend, what will your friend say? Your mitra sakha, sakhi, you know what your friend will say? Take a break. Breathe in for a minute. Pause. Thumb. Saukash. So when they say thumb, it means not that you physically thumb, but that you put that space between that constant running of the thoughts. Thumb is a Marathi word for stop, pause, right? So a friend will also do that, and you also can do that. How? By slowing your breath down and taking deep breaths. Okay, now third answer to that, on a long-term basis, one of the most interesting things that I have found is to learn to immerse yourself in a creative activity or a sports activity. So the word here is immersion. You know, if you're immersed in, say, sports, or if you're immersed in a creative activity, then automatically your breathing gets regulated and your attention is focused towards action where you are thinking without getting disturbed. So even if you lose a point, say in table tennis, I used to play table tennis, and even if you lose a point in table tennis, you'll say just ha, but you'll gather yourself immediately and start playing again, right? Because your focus now is not on the failure that which is transitory, but on the overall picture in when you're playing, say when you're playing badminton or tennis or something, right? So sports, in a completely, if you say I don't want to meditate and all, that's for elderly people or whatever it is. There are people who would say that, young people, it's not cool. Fine, don't. Play a sport. And play a sport so that you can go through the transitory changing part of yourself and come to a bigger motivation. So you know that, just 1 point lost doesn't mean I am lost. 2 points lost, 1 set lost, I am not lost. 2 sets lost, I am not lost. Right? So you can learn that, these difficult times can be changed. In fact, that's what they do in sports coaching as well, isn't it? Okay.
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you.
That's one more good reason to take up sports actually. Thank you for the answer, ma'am. We would like to take at least 1 or 2 more questions from the audience if anyone has any questions. Oh yeah, ma'am, there's a question there.
Yeah.
So my question was that how would you deal with the fear of missing out, especially in a college like COEP, where there is a million things to do?
Can you repeat the question?
She repeated, sorry.
My question was that how would you deal with the fear of missing out, especially in a college like COEP where you are having a million things to do and 1,000 different people to know. How would you manage everything and deal with the fear?
Mama, could you listen? I mean, was the question
No,
audible?
it was
Repeat.
echoing.
Yeah,
It
okay.
was
You can
echoing.
repeat.
Okay,
Khushi, you can repeat.
I'll just repeat it. Ma'am, the question is that how does one deal with the fear of missing out? Like the millennials call it FOMO. Like in an
Yeah.
institute like COEP where there are like thousand things going on and so many stuff going on. Like how does one deal with that?
Yes, so that's a very interesting question. And so it is true, very good point from the questioner that world has started changing very fast. So in fact now it is becoming so difficult to catch the world which is changing so fast. And when you try to catch this super fast changing world, then you have this fear of missing out, right? So I'll give an example. It happens with many women, I once met a group of women, and we were talking about these women had left their work for some time because they had got married and then they were planning to have a family. So this was in the context of research about 15-20 years back. Now, we were having a focus group discussion. So I said, and there were some women who had then rejoined work. Okay? So I first give this example and then we can extrapolate it to this current situation of fear of missing out. Okay? So we were talking in local language and we were saying, so how do you feel about it? So one of the women, and because this is a largely Marathi audience, I will say what the person said. One of the women was Marathi, and she was also an engineer. So she was, but now she had rejoined the workforce. So she said, and I will translate it in English later. So she said that ताई मला जेव्हा घरी राहावं लागलं तेव्हा मला असं वाटलं की माझ्या आयुष्याला जंग लागली आहे आणि मग मला पुष्कळ दिवस असं वाटलं की माझ्या आयुष्याला आता काही अर्थच नाही राहिला आणि आता जेव्हा मी बघते स्वतःच कडे तर मला असं वाटतं की त्यावेळेस ते मला बरोबर वाटलं पण त्यांनी माझं काही असं शाश्वत असं नुकसान नाही झालं. So the translation of that is that when I had to leave my work and stay at home because my children were very young, I felt that my life was corroded. That's the correct translation of uh, that word. Basically, she felt that she was missing out on work front, that she was a computer engineer. And later when she looks back, she found that she did not miss a lot in her workspace. So then I asked her, so how can you say that? Because obviously you did miss. I mean, you have to be empirically correct. It's a perception, then how did this perception change? So she said that it took me about a month to kind of adjust to the new situations, but my capabilities had not gone out of fashion. So within the changing and the unchanging part, she herself identified the unchanging part of herself, which is what? Her capabilities. Right? So in every situation, there will be a changing part and there will be an unchanging part. Mind it. So can you find that unchanging part in you? In every situation. Now let's extrapolate this. And I am nowhere saying that women should leave their work. This was 15 years back. At that time it was a trend. Now it should not happen because there are lots of workspaces where you have childcare. And we should have childcare in office spaces. But so if you were to extrapolate it, even though the world is changing very fast, there are certain things, certain essential aspects which are not changing. What are they? Some of these essential aspects are precisely the things that you are doing. listening to each other, caring for each other, being available to each other. The skills and the competencies that you have earned, right? And some of the skills are translated across contexts. For example, if you have learned a particular skill here in terms of listening, in terms of caring, you will be able to use these skills in your work organizations. So many of these essential aspects are there in this fast changing world. You find it. Once you find it, you will lose that fear. You will lose that fear. We are scared because we have not found or we have not thought that everything is changing. Is there something which is common in it? Common means continuous. Right? So everything seems to be changing. Yes. But is there something which is continuous in it? If you find that continuous, then you will not get scared. So what are the things that are continuing in spite of all this disruption, in spite of the changing world? Some of the continuing things are being available, being listening, earning, hard work. Who says that, the internet has made life easier for everybody? It's made probably difficult. More cognitive work for all of us. Adaptation, resilience, all of us have, most of us, in most circumstances, would find those essential, unchanging resources in us, in the situation, and in our relationships. Right? So this adaptation comes from that ability to find that essential and continue it. Right? So that's one way of FOMO.
Thank you for the answer, ma'am. Because of the pressing time, we would just like to take one more question. So, Jay, you could come forward to ask your question.
Good evening, ma'am.
Yeah.
Shilpa Pandit.
Yes.
Good evening, ma'am. Actually, there's one question from someone who joined us online. Her name is Priya. So, our question is, do you think that Indian media misrepresents mental health?
Oh, that's a tough question. I'll tell you two contexts and how the representation changes. In several of the textbooks, since I recently wrote a book, so I ended up reading a whole lot of other books to compare and contrast and to see the commonalities and the essential features and the differences. So in several of the textbooks coming, there is one section on mental health which says that there is a pill popping culture now as well. Now this pill popping culture is particular to certain contexts. Now where does this pill popping culture comes? The pill popping culture comes from a media representation that medicines are the only solution, and I am focusing on the word only, for mental health. And by the way, this media representation comes in so-called developed countries. So now what they are doing is they are countering this kind of a wrong notion because they want to say that you need to have medicines when required, but you should also do therapy and counseling so that you are able to find that stability in yourself. Also, medicines have side effects if taken on long term and without prescription. Mind you, that's why I have used the word pill popping. Now, in Indian media, there is an opposite situation happening. In Indian media, some of my students who are very active on Twitter and Instagram and all, they say that sometimes mental health issues are trivialized, which means that they are talked about in a very casual way. I think that's what I have been told by my young students. So it seems that in the gaze of, or in an effort to talk about mental health, there is a trivialization of the actual suffering. There is suffering, right? If in clinical depression, for example, there is suffering. And we should not be worried about it. I mean, there is dignity to that suffering as well, right? If there is some unemployment, if there is some domestic violence, if there is some job loss, there is suffering. And in fact, one shares that suffering when one talks to a friend. So there is no point either trivializing mental health, there is no point denying the suffering as well. And there is no point in romanticizing suffering as well. So all these things are part of that difficulty in the media representation. So some media tends to deny, and some media tends to simplify, or what we call as reduce it. And some media tends to trivialize it. Another way is, in the media, all kinds of people come up and say, we are psychologists. So some kind of regulation is required. Anybody cannot get up and say we are psychologists. ऐसा तो नहीं कर सकते ना? We cannot do that. We need to have certain competencies which need to be agreed to. So you can have friends as in a preventive setup. You need training for that as well, or some kind of sensitization training that Shilpa mentioned. You can listen in a non-clinical context, but you cannot say that some things nothing requires a clinical intervention. Sometimes suffering is deep enough that it requires medicine and it requires therapy. So these distinctions are, who will draw these distinctions? You, students will do. You, because you are young citizens, you are citizens of the Twitter and Snapchat and Instagram, and I was told that there are several people who trivialize mental health on Instagram, reels and so on and so forth. So you will do that course correction, because we cannot do this course correction by using police unless it becomes a criminal offense, right? For that you have done some cyber initiatives. But in most social contexts, we as active citizens have to do this correction. We have to correct the media. That's what I mean.
Thank you so much, ma'am, for the answer.
Thank you.
We are done with the Q&A session, and I'd like to invite Shilpa ma'am to introduce our next speaker for today.
Thank you very much, Shilpa ma'am, for accepting this invitation and for once again, sharing your ideas. I had already told you that I was very impressed with the way you had taken the session when I attended one of the courses, and since then I had been wanting to hear you, and I am sure that with the response that I've got from my colleagues also, even Ayyar ma'am was telling me that we should invite her personally to COEP. When things become better, things become a little more normal, and we would really want you to come here and visit us personally. So thank you so much, ma'am, for accepting our invitation and for answering all the questions and inviting us. Now I would like to introduce our second speaker for today. Her name is Miss Manasi Kshirsagar. She is a clinical psychologist and a therapist working in Pune. She has over 15 years of experience. She is a freelance psychologist who has been associated with various hospitals. She has a private setup. She also has, in her setup, she runs different activities wherein she also trains students of psychology. She offers internships to students who can get some hands-on training about counseling, which is absolutely essential. I have seen her work closely, and she is one of the most trusted psychologists that I can depend on in Pune. So thank you very much, Manasi ma'am, for being here with us, and the stage is over to you now.
everyone. Am I audible there? Yeah. So, respected dignitaries, my colleagues, students, Shilpa ma'am, and even I can see some parents here. Thank you so much for inviting me here, and without taking much time, I would like to go ahead because I understand that we have some time limit as well. Okay. Ahuja sir and Shilpa ma'am has talked about something very, very important, and that is reflecting, okay, connecting, and also being aware of oneself. Okay, ma'am also talked about empathy, and I guess I feel, and I have experienced this as well, that it starts from oneself. Okay. Ma'am has also talked about what happens to people's mental health, especially now during pandemic. Some topics like FOMO and how the media is talking about mental health, that has all been talked about. I would like to take all of you on a journey, I would say, because it will not end if you will participate in this journey, I'm sure. So we would all go into a journey of connecting these things which Anuja sir started with, and Shilpa ma'am has beautifully, I must appreciate the command over language and the that calmness in her through which she is reaching out to all of us. It's commendable. So both of them have beautifully talked about it. Yeah, I really don't want to add anything more, but I would like this experience to stay with all of you at the end of the day. Yeah. So shall we all begin?
Yes.
Yeah. Ma'am, can you please come and join us? Can you just shift to the front row, and even there are two students, I guess, in the last row. Can you also shift? Touch it, right? Yeah, you can participate. Okay, because we are going to talk about mental health. All these activities are centered around mental health. And of course, this concept of mitra, like Ahuja sir said, it's always better to have friend, and I have such friend here with whom I can always share, and I can feel that empathy from her, and then I feel empathetic towards my own self for whatever I am, the being in myself, that constant self in me. Okay, so I would want all of you to touch that constant self, even if it's going to change. You would understand that it's okay. It's okay to be not okay. It's absolutely fine. So everybody is ready? Yeah? Alright. So the first round of activities, what you are supposed to do, you have to think about your own self in a minute, and you have to relate yourself with an animal, bird, creature, a living creature basically, with whom you feel that your characteristics, personality features match. Okay, and you're going to share it with all of us. Okay, so you have to think of an animal, bird, insect with which you can relate your personality features or characteristics. Okay, take a minute, think about yourself, and then we'll have a sharing now. Shilpa ma'am, would you like to start?
Thank you. So that's wonderful. I am an ant.
Wow. Yeah. And what makes you feel like that ant?
I am very disciplined in teams, and I work. I'm a hard worker. So I am an ant.
Yeah. Wow. Okay. Yeah. Ahuja sir?
I thought I am an elephant.
Okay. And
because I am vegetarian.
alright, okay.
And maybe because I am calm.
Yeah. Yes. Absolutely. We could feel that calmness while sitting here also. It was like we could feel that, like even though we were like sharing the space with the director, we never felt so. At least I never felt so. It was like that mitra, the entire concept we could connect with. Thank you so much. Sir?
So you have to relate yourself with some animal or insect.
Who will represent your personality?
Represents your personality.
You can think till then we'll take it further. Huh?
Well, I share the same with Ahuja sir. Like, I relate myself to be an elephant, and if you talk about an insect, I feel like a butterfly because butterfly is colorful, and at the same time it loves colors and it keeps hopping and it's full of life and full of joy. Okay, so that is what I am, and I would like to share. Elephant, yes, it's huge. It has got a gait, and still it is calm, composed, thoughtful. Okay, so that is what I feel that I am. So this is what I feel about myself.
Shilpa?
I can do it.
Okay. So, shall we start from there? If you have a mic, can we pass it on?
Yeah.
You think I can put it down? Hello? 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 You can speak louder.
I think I'm like a dog probably because I am loyal and I can be bought with treats.
Okay. Alright. Yeah.
I relate myself to a cheetah probably.
Wow.
Yes. I think I'm first.
Alright.
I think I'm like a penguin because I'm always in a crowd or I'm always with my friends and helping them.
Wow. That's great. Good.
Ma'am, the laptop mic is muted actually.
Yeah, I muted it.
Okay.
You want me to switch it off?
They can't
They
hear.
cannot hear us.
Acha.
Yes.
Eh?
Yeah.
Okay. I think I'll relate with a cat because the cats that I have seen keep on sleeping all day and I really sleep for long hours, so I think I'm a cat.
That's good. Kushi? Yes? I guess that's Kushi's mother, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
I can actually relate to two animals. Is it okay?
Yeah, sure.
Firstly, I'll say like I can relate to a dog because maybe I'm loyal. Like I may not have a very big friend circle, but the circle I have, like I'm really close to them. Secondly, I can maybe relate to a lion, I guess, because I'm calm, but I'm also very focused and I'm a goal-driven person.
I think I can relate to eagle. I enjoy the feeling of solitude, fresh air, and I think I am very adaptable.
Yeah, I think I relate myself to a dog. I think I'm honest to my job, honest to my employer.
Okay, all those people who are present online, we will have all of you to share as well.
Sir,
Yes. So are you ready?
Yeah, so I like this activity. I would like myself to frog first of all. Reason being, frog can live in any adverse situation, partly in water or ground, can go in hibernation. So I think my qualities are somewhat related to frog. Can live in any situation. With insect, I relate myself with an ant. नन्ही चींटी जब दाना लेके चढ़ती है, चढ़कर गिरना, गिरकर चढ़ना, कोशिश करने वालों की कभी हार नहीं होती है. I relate myself with ant, a small ant.
Yes. Even you all can share. Naman?
Yeah, I don't have it blank, but and also the fear of missing out because we couldn't hear what people were saying, so that did keep me. I think probably some animal like cheetah, because take a target and go in full force behind it, something like that of that sort.
Okay.
So yeah.
Yes, very good. And ma'am has told us already what to do if you are feeling FOMO. So you can start applying that.
Yeah, I did.
That's nice. Yeah, yeah. So I can see Adarsh as well here. Adarsh?
Yes, ma'am. I feel like a wolf, like a pack of wolves can achieve so much together. So if we work together, we can achieve as a group so much that we can't do ourselves.
Okay. Thank you. Yeah. Roshan?
Roshan, I think his audio has an
Okay,
issue.
no problem. What you can do is you can write in the chat box as well, so that if there is any connectivity issue, we'll be able to understand what you want to say. Yeah. Okay. So, how does it feel when you have taken this 1 minute for your own self to reflect, connect, not just with yourself, others as well? And I was observing all of you were really listening to what others are saying. Okay, you were like the entire concept of mitra, listening to others, being there, accepting your own self. Yeah, samvedana, like ma'am said, that empathy. I could also see that when you were saying, when you were sharing, I could see the bhav, the emotions on your face, and you were thinking, so the vichar about oneself, which we sometimes forget that we can do this. Okay, reaching out, yes, certainly important. Like ma'am also mentioned that if you are not able to help your own self, if you are not able to understand what your loved ones, significant others are trying to tell you, counselors, therapists, we all are there. But I guess all of you have taken the first step towards that peace that you can have within your own self. Okay, preserving your own mental health, because prevention is always better than cure. Yeah, how does it feel when you are thinking about your own self? And taking this moment on everyday basis. You need not get into the zoo all the time. Okay, you can have different methods for that, even a cup of coffee while you are watering the plants, while you are having your food, while you are playing with the child, okay, while you are driving, while you are enjoying that, even if there is a lot of traffic, you all can connect with your own self. Okay, it just takes 1 minute to start working on your own mental health. Yes, everybody agrees to this?
Yes.
Yeah, ma'am, you can add something if you want.
Once in a we miss Shipra.
Yeah, I'm going to come to her. I will not let her go like that.
Yeah, I know.
Yes. Now.
Okay, so two animals. One, an eagle, because I think eagles are very sharp and they can observe from top. They can see lots of things and their eyes are always on the target. So they're very focused. And second, I would also relate with a caterpillar, because I think a caterpillar is very wise, that it transforms into something absolutely different, into a butterfly, which I show as, like, people say that I am a butterfly, but I think I feel more like a caterpillar. So these are the two animals I relate most with.
I can completely see what you are saying.
Yeah.
So she is that mitra in my life.
Yeah.
I can talk about her endlessly, and I guess she can talk
Yeah.
about me endlessly. We share that space for each other, where we are just our own selves. And I really thank you for that. And that takes us to the next activity. Okay.
But ma'am, you have to also tell us what you are connected
Yes.
to.
Yes. Yes, definitely. So I relate myself with a horse. Okay. Speed, focus, consistency, and power. I guess I really feel connected with all these qualities that a horse has, and I've experienced that whenever I see horse anywhere, I just feel that adrenaline rushing me. So yeah. Yes. Shall we go on to the next activity?
Yes.
So during these times of pandemic, where the most of the times focus was on the physical health, and of course that was for obvious reasons, it was important, but at the same time especially in the second lockdown, what happened, people started realizing that something is wrong with me. I'm not able to connect with my own family, I'm not able to connect with my friends, I'm just being at home, I'm worried. There was a lot of helplessness, hopelessness, insecurity, lot of uncertainty as well, right? First lockdown, I guess everybody enjoyed that break from work with family. Lot of food was made and lot of jokes we like read about it. But the second wave actually motivated, I would say, researchers to look at the mental health. And what was more important in that entire phase was to feel that gratitude for whatever you had in that moment, right? Maybe medical facilities, maybe food, you didn't have to go out, you could buy that food, okay? You were capable of doing your things on your own, maybe cooking, maybe cleaning, all the stuff, right? Again, just one moment, and I would like you to write down, maybe in your notes, because if you don't have the notebooks right now, in your notes, mobile notes, what is it that you feel the gratitude for? It can be somebody else, it can be your own self too. Just few lines, yeah? Again, you can start doing this activity now and you can do it at home or on a daily basis you can do it. So now just write down 2 to 3 lines maximum, considering the time. So what you are supposed to write? The feeling of gratitude that you have for. Yes, you can think about it or write it.
Can I share?
Sure.
I feel that during this pandemic, I feel extremely grateful for 3 things in my life. One is my son, my family, of course, because I think throughout the pandemic, the innocence of children, I think, helped us sail through a very difficult time. I'm sure you would agree with that. So one is my family, especially my son. Secondly, I'm very grateful to my friends. You understand the value of friends when you need them, and this was such time. And third, I'm extremely grateful for my workplace, for COEP, because I think this is a place that I wanted desperately to come back to. And we used to share this also, me and Ayar ma'am, we used to discuss about this, that please let the college open, let us just go there, because it gives us a very important positive vibe. So I think I'm extremely thankful for this workplace. So 3 things.
Thank you.
I would also like to share actually. My entire family had been in a very bad phase of time during the pandemic situation. At the time, 10 family members were COVID sufferers, and they were admitted in 3 different hospitals. Only 4 members were such that they didn't have any corona symptoms. 2 of my son, my 2 sons, and my cousin and my nephew. During this period, these 4 people, they were continuously moving from one hospital to another and fulfilling all our demands. Doctor asked us to give some chicken soup, mutton soup, some high proteins. Pandemic situation, sometimes all hotels were closed. How to get it? So my first deepest gratitude is to these people. I have seen doctors also during that period in hospital, and doctors and nurses. Hats off to them, because they are real God. I have seen that those doctors and nurses in the night hours, they used to sleep on floor, and whenever there is a call, they used to just run up and attend the patients. So the gratitude is to entire all these COVID workers, COVID frontiers, and of course the supporters, friends, relatives, the entire community. I have seen that the community in those days so good, so supportive, that what we can say that it was all just because of them. The gratitude is and salute is to the first doctors and nurses, then of course these relatives, my kids, and all supporters. Everyone has already gone through this phase, and we have seen that yes, whenever there is a personal relationship, the confidence level is there.
Yes.
Everything good can happen. So this mitra is really necessary. The connectivity with person to person, connectivity with each other. Without any sort of त्याला आपण असं म्हणतो की अपेक्षा. Negativeness towards all these people.
I can absolutely feel your emotions, sir, right now. When you're talking, we can connect with those emotions. Thank you for sharing your experience. Thank you so much. Anybody else would like to? Yes, sir.
So I'm coming from a very small village in Nagpur district, and in the month of April, I was in my village. My village was very badly affected by this COVID second wave. Almost 80-90 patients were there, and whatever we have seen on the TVs and this thing, I mean, you have seen, because at that time I was not in touch with the TV also. I have practically experienced that. Almost was connected with 360 COVID patients, admitted almost 10-12 patients, and attended many funerals, almost 10-12 funerals. And it was a very difficult situation. When at times I was thinking whether I would be going back to COEP or not. But whenever such negative thoughts were coming, there was one mitra with me, and that was COEP. Start from BOG director, and then that this my mother like anything. And I should not praise myself, but to some extent was working like a COVID warrior in every sense, admitting the people, managing the hospitals, this thing, that thing. And of course, I should not again praise the management and director, but it was always coming to me that whenever I need some help, I'm just away from a phone call to Ahuja sir or any of my friend. So that was the. But when I came back to college, maybe after 1.5 months, maybe after almost 1.5 months, intermittently I was connected with the college administration and director. The best part of it, the college also did not ask me that why you are so late and why you did not perform. That was the kind of faith on the employee like me from the college administration. And when I came, almost I have lost my 7 kg of weight. And sugar was very high, and slowly came out of that situation. And that mitra, COEP mitra, helped made me in coming out of that situation. But when I see, I'm also, I have that feeling of doing something for someone. So that when I talk to myself, I always feel some sort of, I get a good feeling from me that yes, whatever you have done is a good thing. Thanks.
Thank you so much. Thank you. So what I actually see here, as a professional counselor, what we give to our clients is this trust, this empathy, this listening space, and it's really amazing to see that you are all receiving it from your own workplace. It's very rare to see this, and not just the colleagues here, but even the senior management is offering that to you. And I guess that is where the seeds of taking this mental health profession ahead with its own dignity, by reaching out to more and more people, helping them understand that you can trust this entire process. Okay, I guess you all have already begun that, and I guess with this I would like to stop here, considering the time. And more like. One thing I would definitely want to say, I have been seeing all these students doing amazing job, coordinating, brainstorming, like appreciating each other, and this is what this is really the best, beyond the professional boundaries that you can all offer to all the students here. Amazing work. Thank you so much.
so much, Manasi ma'am, for this wonderful talk and for this interaction. I would now like to invite Khushi to deliver the vote of thanks.
Okay, so finally the moment when I thank everyone. So to begin with, I would first like to thank our speakers, Dr. Shilpa Pandit and Manasi ma'am, for taking out time from their busy schedules and addressing us. We would like to thank our Honorable Director Anuja sir and Deputy Director Sutome sir for being strong pillars of Mitra. I would especially like to thank Dhamangaonkar sir for gracing this event in person. We would also like to thank all the deans, all the HODs in the COEP family. Special thanks once more to HOD Applied Sciences, Iyer ma'am, for being with us in every step. This event wouldn't have been possible without our center head, Dr. Shipra ma'am, and thank you for the same. Thank you for being our Mitra. We would also like to extend our gratitude to Manasi ma'am, Bharti Chopra ma'am, Tanuja Kher ma'am, and all the faculties involved directly or indirectly with Mitra. A token of gratitude to all the external experts associated with Mitra. We are also thankful to the technical assistance provided by the data center and all the media personnel who accepted our invitation, and PRO Snehal ma'am for connecting us with the media. We would also like to thank the people who came here to record our event. Thanks a lot.
Sushant Sathe.
We would like to thank Mr. Sushant Sathe for being here and actually making us visible to a larger audience. The event is only successful because of the strong force of student volunteers. But before thanking the strong force of student volunteers, I would like to thank the Bhau Institute and the Kirloskar Auditorium and everyone associated who made this possible, especially Girish sir. So, coming back to the point where I thank the people who are really close to me. Thank you, the alumni team, Naman, Disha, Shreya, Ved, Ashutosh, Sanket, all of you, thank you for laying those very, very strong foundation stones that and leaving behind such a legacy that we have on our shoulders right now. And the present team of Mitra, thank you, Jay, Priyal, Sanket, Rachit, the senior most member of Mitra right now. Thank you everyone, Adarsh, Roshan. I'm sorry if I missed out someone's name, but thank you each member of Mitra for being there and standing with our philosophy. At last, but the most important part, I like to thank our audience for being so patient with us, and I hope that you have taken something, a key takeaway that would help you maybe to take care of yourself in some tiny little way. So, thank you.
Everyone needs in life, and that is Khushi. There is one thing that everyone would want to give to a friend, and that is Khushi. So we must thank Khushi and her team for making this evening so very wonderful. What better lecture than having Khushi with us in the team and for all of us. And I'm sure she will continue to spread this joy and liveliness amongst all of us and all her friends. So, a true mitra for everyone. Thank you, Khushi, for being there for all of us.
जनगणमन अधिनायक जय हे भारत भाग्य विधाता पंजाब सिंध गुजरात मराठा द्राविड उत्कल बंग विंध्य हिमाचल यमुना गंगा उच्चल जलधि तरंग तब शुभ नामे जागे तब शुभ आशीष मांगे गाहे तब जय गाथा जन गण मंगल दायक जय हे भारत भाग्य विधाता जय हे जय हे जय हे जय 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 हे
For joining us. Everyone else who has joined us online, thanks a lot for joining us.
Please ask everyone to join.
Everyone who is present with us right now in person, please join us for the hydration, the refreshments. Please join us.